Today we have Giovan Lane-Walker. She is a scientist turned strategist and a CEO of LaneChange Strategy. She helps companies fix broken workplace culture and rebuild trust. She works with leaders to create spaces where people feel seen, valued, comfortable, and showing up as themselves every day. Y'all already know what to do. Let's give a warm We Talk Weekly welcome to Giovan Lane-Walker.
How are you? How are you?
Hello, everyone. Hi. So happy to be here.
I'm super excited to have you today. Super excited to have you today. And so, one of the things that we do when we have our guests, we always ask, "How was your day? How was your day today? How was your day?"
Oh, my day was good. I actually went to a celebration of life,
Okay.
and so was able to, praise the Lord and glorify His name, and celebrate a life that was well lived.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And so, we talk weekly. Always say, once you come to the show, you're a friend of the show, so you're always welcome to come back. So I want to make sure that we put that out there for you because we always love the people who come to the show. But I want to start with let's start from the beginning, right? You're talking about so much information, so much knowledge base you have. Let's talk about your schooling.
My schooling.
Yes, your schooling,
Sure.
that wealth of knowledge that you have, and
Mhm.
going from one school to another and all that information. Let's start there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll start at high school
Okay.
because we don't need to go all the way back to elementary school.
It's all good.
Okay. So I actually graduated from Strawberry Mansion.
Well, shout out to
Wow.
Yeah, North Philly in the
Yeah.
house. And from there, went to Virginia State University. Got my bachelor's in biology, pre-medicine.
Right.
Of course, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but God had other plans for me.
Mhm.
So I came back home to Philadelphia, worked in the science field, so doing research at University of Pennsylvania, and did some research on AIDS and HIV, SIV viruses,
Right.
and then just kind of transitioned my career in science to do research in academia,
Right.
then biotechnology, and ultimately pharmaceuticals. And so that's where I landed. And then from there, just kind of progressed my career from science to an HR capacity,
Mhm.
looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Fantastic. And since you jumped on it, I think that's and I was going to ask a different question, but since we're talking about DEI, right?
Mhm.
We all know what, our current president, how he feels about DEI. And so because that was part of the field that, you amplified and you worked hard under, what are your feelings about this new conversation about DEI and now belonging, so to speak? Yeah.
Yeah, so DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, has always been a piece of how we come together and work. And so, because we're having the conversation now and DEI is considered a bad word,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gone away.
Mhm.
It still exists,
Yeah, absolutely.
just redefined in a way that is around belonging and fairness and opportunity and whatever other words you want to
That part.
give to it, right? So ultimately, it just means to kind of make sure that we are creating organizations that are fair and equitable and giving opportunity to the people that need it.
Right.
hmm
Do you think that DEI has helped companies for specifically, let's just say, Black people where they had to code switch at one point? Do you think that it amplified people to feel like they can be themselves, similar to what the Crown Act did? What's your thoughts on that?
So I would say yes. And so I think that it did give an opportunity for Black people to see themselves in higher positions, because at that point we were being developed and given opportunities to develop ourselves for greater roles in the organizations that we were going to. However, now that there's this disparaging cloud over DEI, and things are being rolled back, I think that it's causing a negative rollback of what DEI was supposed to be in organizations.
Wow. I see you nodding over there, Tanisha.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question?
I know. It's the code switching for me, because I still have to do that
Mhm.
in my role in society. But I find myself doing it just so that people who look like me, who are coming to a place where everyone else and what's set into place is typically not like them, or probably what they weren't included in the thought process of, I code switch to make them feel comfortable, so they can know, hey, we're relatable. I understand what you're talking about. I can read between the lines of what you're trying to communicate to me. So I do it to be helpful, but I do wish we lived in a world where communication could just be free flowing and people didn't feel those limitations. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing. This makes me happy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What made you switch in the looking at the community overall from being, in science and then switching over to either, strategy?
That's a really good question. So I'll talk about my transition from being a lab scientist going into the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And so basically I was always the only Black woman in science related fields.
Wow.
In all of the organizations, the departments that I was in. And so I would go to career fairs and seek out people that look like me to let them know, hey, I'm here. I represent you in this field, and you can come and be welcomed and have a career in science if you want to. So that's how I kind of transitioned, because I wanted to see other people that look like me where I was. And so transitioned my role from being in science to being more of someone doing outreach and creating opportunities and developmental projects and programs to bring them in so that they can see people that look like them. I feel like employee resource groups played a really heavy part of that, because I was affiliated with employee resource groups. And so they give you the opportunity to kind of reach out and do that grassroots work that's necessary to show the young folks that we are in organizations like, the big pharmaceutical companies, and you too can find yourself in them too.
Yeah, I think that's a great transition to talk about LaneChange? It's
LaneChange Strategies.
LaneChange Strategies, because when we talk about you helping organizations, let's talk a little bit about that, and what was the impetus in starting?
So it actually started because of the work that's being done to roll back DEI, right? So the executive orders that came out that were kind of disbanding DEI and what it meant to organizations that were embedding DEI practices into the work. And so what I realized was we still will have DEI, but it'll be named something different. And organizations, they didn't know what to do after the executive orders were put out, but they knew that having diverse individuals in their organization, creating opportunities, making sure that opportunities were being delivered in an equitable manner, and people had a culture of inclusion in an organization, it was necessary, but they didn't know how to do it. And so that's where I come in to kind of help organizations understand how they can continue to do the diversity, equity, and inclusion work and remain compliant with what they're saying is illegal, or, within the lines of what is legal versus not.
Now, what does that look like for diversity, equity, inclusion? Some, on a layman's term, may think, is that affirmative action, or is that something where I feel as though I'm being marginalized based on my gender, my ethnicity, whatever that is, that makes me different? What is it that would a person do, and if they seek out a DI strategist or someone to help them? Like, what is it? What would be the steps that they could take if they feel marginalized against a company or organization?
Well, yes, you should have some type of a speak up channel that you can go to and make a report that you're being discriminated against or what have you. But DEI kind of culminates all of those things. So making sure that we have representation, we have fairness that is across the board. We don't have any discriminatory practices that are happening in your organization. And we're given opportunities to advance ourselves. And what was your other question?
Just what does that look like though, as far as diversity, equity, inclusion? When I hear it, I'm like, okay, I know that it's something that would be for people so that they don't feel marginalized.
Right.
But when we did have it where they've had different type of departments or people that would look over that, what is it that they want to teach the leadership team? What is it that they want to teach to the staff? What is that? What does that proposal look like?
Yeah, so that it's interesting that you say that. So oftentimes, or I'll say before the executive orders, there were a lot of organizations that were doing DEI wrong. In that they were just wanting to meet quotas. They were putting out metrics to say we need to make sure that we have X amount of Black people or Latinx people in these roles. And so that's when the negative vibe came about DEI, because folks then started to feel like, well, they don't have the proper education to be in those types of roles, or they don't have enough seniority to be in those types of roles. You're only putting them in those roles because of their color. And so and that is absolutely the wrong way to do DEI. And that's why we're now finding ourselves rolling it back, because of the wrong nature that people were doing DEI work. And so now how it should be looked at is kind of understanding and diagnosing what is happening at the systems level of an organization when it comes to their culture, kind of like disbanding it and then rebuilding it back up. So that's what I do. I want to diagnose and understand what's going on in the systems of the organization. What are the behaviors that the leadership have that are voluntarily or involuntarily harming the culture and making it not be a place where people feel like they belong and are included, and give them the tools to do that. Because, as people that work in an organization, the number one thing or reason why people leave an organization is normally because of their manager. And so if you help your managers or train your managers to become leaders that have inclusive behaviors, then ultimately you'll be able to keep the people, retain the people, because you're building the trust up, because they are learning those tools and skills to build the trust up on their teams, and they can get the most out of their team. So what I'm doing is helping organizations get highest performance out of their people through creating cultures of belonging.
Interesting. So I'm just curious how you would address, say, for example, our current mayor of Philadelphia, who had this challenge where people feel like she started to pivot when it came to her DEI plan, whatever, no longer, or stepping back from DEI. So if one of her consultants or strategists came to you and was to ask you, well, what would you recommend for me to do so it doesn't look like I'm potentially going against a community, but I'm still trying to navigate what's necessary for the commands of the federal government, so to speak. How would you go about that?
Well, for one, I would tell them to make sure that they're staying within the confines of what the law is saying about DEI. And there really isn't anything written in law that says you can't practice DEI in an organization. And so as long as you are continuing to remain aligned with EEOC policies, then you'll be fine. What's been, I guess, put out into the atmosphere is that, DEI is a bad word, right? And so
it's a curse word.
A lot of people have rolled back and kind of, tucked their tail between their legs and ran because of the fact that they are affiliated with government contracting
Yeah.
and federal grants and monies and stuff like that. And so hence the fact that the mayor chose to do what she did, because of the fact that, okay, I need to kind of weigh out my options. Do I want to take away the money that is coming from the federal government and lose on delivering whatever I've promised to the people of Philadelphia because I'm standing firm on, I'm doing DEI anyway? Or can we pivot how we're reframing doing this work and still kind of maintain being compliant with what the law states when it comes to DEI practices? So I would tell them to make sure that they're reading law and staying within the confines of law, but continue to do the work.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna bring counselor in right now. In terms of when someone has to navigate or kind of walk through that gray area, right? What's the best way to do that without crossing the line, so to speak, if you understand that? Yeah.
And do you mean someone from an administrative perspective
Yeah.
or like an employee? So definitely, you can't work within your own mind. You bring in your legal team, your strategists, those who have worked with the EEOC and kind of have read through the lines and understand the fine print, and then know where the gray areas are.
Yeah.
Because the gray areas are where things are not easily explained or not readily broken down into things that you can apply. So it requires some work through. It requires other minds. It requires legal approaches. It requires people who have history working in DEI, so that all those minds can come together and kind of work through, this is going to be the framework that we're going to do. And most of the times you don't know what's going to work. You just have to try. You put something together and you work within what all the minds have brought together, and you start somewhere.
Yeah.
And with anything, mistakes will be made. You'll figure out where those are and you'll clean up and kind of navigate around that to build something.
Fantastic. So with your organization, do you see a breakthrough? Do you see a aha moment with the work that you do? Do you see any challenges with the work that you do when we thinking about your strategic plan with your organization? What are your thoughts on that in terms of you constantly building and growing?
So I feel like being able to give them clarity in a really ambiguous, complex situation is really helpful. That's when the aha moments come, because they then start to look inward and examine what's happening in our four walls. How can we create change that ultimately impacts our bottom line? Because if we really think about it, it all is based on, what are our shareholders saying and how are we making the money that we want to make? But so they need to kind of look internal. And so I think that that's when the aha moments come into play, when they kind of turn off what's happening outside and think about, well, how are we structured? What can we do that is going to impact not only the bottom line, but the people? Because if we impact the people, that's going to impact our bottom line.
Yeah. I have a question. And this is kind of like a pushback to what was, I guess, the consensus of a lot of people when DEI was, before, I guess it was, canceled, dismantled. There was a percentage that they stated which DEI represented more white women than it was intended for as far as Black people. It was more intended for the LGBTQ community. It was, so with that being said, could you give us a more, I guess, from it being your wheelhouse, educated information that will let us know, was that intended for us? And why is it that we're fighting so hard for something that numbers are showing it didn't benefit us?
That's a really good question. And I think you're mainly talking about affirmative action, right? And so, yes, affirmative action was put in place for us. And I feel like, over time, people kind of hitched their wagon to our train, but then kind of flipped the script and used it for themselves. And we as Black people, we always allow people to kind of hitch their self
We always
to us
protecting everybody.
and
Everybody
are protecting
included.
everybody, and we're not protecting ourselves.
That's right.
And I think that, you know, if we could get together and band together and just kind of do the work for ourselves, that we would have much more success. But yes, affirmative action was created for us.
Okay, so the DEI numbers are really for people who were saying that they were looking at the affirmative action type of, because when you run the DEI percentage and you're looking for diversity, equity, inclusion, percentages show that it's really for, like I said, the LGBTQ community and more for the white women community. It doesn't benefit, let's just say, Black women. Are those numbers speaking towards DEI, or are those numbers from what you just said, like the affirmative action? Because I'm looking at, I'm thinking of it more from a DEI. Because we actually had a guest on the show who was speaking about that, saying that they, you know, with the administration now canceling DEI and saying, hey, it wasn't even something that benefited us. That's why I wanted you to let us know, no, that's incorrect. DEI did benefit us. DEI was something that did help, you know, Black women in, you know, corporate America to be able to be not on the pay scale of, you know, being unrepresented.
Right.
Yeah. And before you jump into that, I think the context was about using the word minority groups.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about minority groups, historically you had these quote unquote marginalized groups, which included women as being a marginalized group, and it pointed more towards white women, and Black women just kind of looped into Black folk as opposed to, right? And so these are the disenfranchised groups, whatever. So I just wanted to get some context here.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the question is it something that benefits us? DEI, well, you know, I guess it's going to be framed another word, but is in, you know, from
it's belonging.
It's
now.
all the same.
Yeah. But is it something that benefits us?
I feel as though it does.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel as though DEI, belonging, inclusion work, it does benefit us. But then at the same time, it benefits the whole. So like it's going to benefit those marginalized groups that you talked about, right? So we then get lumped into the marginalized group category. But I mean, as Black women, we're the most educated demographic in the world. So, I mean, I don't know what else more to say.
Yeah, the numbers show that.
The numbers show that.
They do.
No doubt. Yeah.
Last question. When staff is coming to leadership and they're saying that they are burnt out and, you know, they're not so much underpaid, just burnt out. What is something that, you know, with your company, your organization could help other organizations and companies that you talk to their staff or talk to their leadership on how to help staff members because of work-life balance?
That's a really good one. I would probably try to understand what are the dynamics, the working dynamics in the team. Is there something where we can kind of level the playing field as far as workload is concerned? Is somebody taking on more than what they should? And kind of try to unpack that, diagnose what's going on inside of the organization so that we can kind of recalibrate and rebalance what's going on. But then also to understand what kind of benefits packages do you have for your employees? Do they have an opportunity to talk to a counselor? What does time off look like? Those are the types of things that I would kind of try to unpack to understand, well, what's really going on? Because there's something that's happening in this system that's causing your people to be burnt out.
Awesome.
Yeah. So when we get to, you know, moving forward, right, and we think of like your organization and the legacy that you would like to leave for that, what does that look like for you? What would that be?
For me, the legacy that I would leave is creating organizations that help people thrive, where everyone feels as though they belong, that they can come there and be their whole selves to whatever capacity that is. I did hear Sis back there talk about code switching.
Yeah.
That is very real.
Mhm.
So we want to make it a place where, because we spend most of our time at work,
Yeah.
we want to make work a place where you can feel free to be there
Yeah.
and not have to code switch.
Yeah. I love
Yeah,
it.
that's what I want to do. I want to make work be free.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, the funny thing about code switching, right, is most black folk know or understand
Oh
what
yeah.
code switching is. White folk don't necessarily understand it,
No.
right? Because they never really had to do that.
Exactly.
And if they, when they do it, it's more of a mockery or trying to
Mhm.
kind of colonize a culture, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
We do it because it's necessary. It's a necessity
Exactly.
for us, right?
Mhm.
And so when we think of like code switching, is it actually a bad thing? Like when you think of code switching, the in the context, right? If we really pull back the layers in
Mhm.
to have a discourse, is code switching a bad thing?
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a sad thing.
Ah,
I
I'm
think
getting
it's
applause for that
sad
one
that
right
we
there.
have to do that.
I
Like,
love that. Yeah.
my husband and I are on a Blackish binge,
Ah,
and
they
so
even run-
Andre
I thought I was the
talking
only
about-
one who watched that.
Oh no, we watch it all the time,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
were talking about code switching,
Yeah.
and he had to kind of school
Yeah.
his colleagues on, well, what does that mean? It's
Yeah.
like your voice when you call the insurance company, when you
Yeah.
call the electric company.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's a bad thing, but I do think it's a sad thing that we shouldn't have to do, because we should be able to be ourselves.
Yeah, fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. I would I'll make sure I let your husband know to watch Black AF too.
Oh, that's our show too. Yes.
That's why you give a round of applause for Black AF. That's one of my favorite shows.
Exactly.
They canceled it too quick.
Yes, they
canceled
did.
it too
Yes,
quick.
they
You know,
did.
so shout out to you. I want to thank you for coming to the show. And before we let you go, why don't you let everyone know how they can get in contact with you? Do you have any thing coming up so people can kind of follow all that good stuff?
Absolutely, for sure. So you can reach me on my website at LaneChangeStrategies.com. I do have leadership briefs that I run on a monthly schedule, and the next one is all about the trust collapse. It's going to happen on April 23rd from 6 to 7 p.m. You get some free diagnostics and a tool to take into work in that week after you attend.
Oh,
Interesting.
nice.
What does a tool look like? So when you're saying a tool, what is that?
So you'll get a diagnosis on
Okay.
where you fall as a leader in your trust capacity in your team, and then we'll talk about how you can implement trust or start to begin building trust on your team next week.
That's
the tool.
important.
Yeah. So is it?
is.
So do they sit down to get that? How do they get the tool? Like what is it like?
So I have a toolkit that's all based on trust and how
Okay.
you can
Like
build
templates.
templates,
Uh-huh.
scripting, all of those types of things.
I got.
Yes.
We need to
Nice.
talk because I see an AI app for that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I definitely see that, and that's something we can talk about.
The,
We
the
see
sure.
AI guy.
Yeah, because I
I
soon as you
love-
said, I'm like,
wait.
ooh.
Wait,
I'm all
ask
on
her about
Claude
that.
right now.
Okay, we need
Claude,
to know.
okay, yeah.
We need to ask about
Sure.
AI
Mhm.
because we're doing basically. We Talk Weekly has been
Mhm.
doing platforms and panels about AI, and actually Charles just did two of them,
Yeah,
right?
you did
Workshops.
Yeah, workshop.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the questions are about AI.
Mhm.
What's your thoughts on it? Do you think it should stay around? Is it helpful? What's your thoughts?
I absolutely love AI. I'm all over Claude right now. He and I are coworkers, best friends. But yeah, I absolutely love AI, and I think that it should be utilized as much as it can be. But at the same time, I'm a sci-fi movie watcher, and I don't know, is AI going to take over? We don't know.
Wow.
It's yet to be determined.
Yeah.
But I do love AI, and I do think that it should stay around. And I think that everybody should learn to begin to use it and use it properly.
Yeah.
Of course, then, we talk about the legal aspect of it and the ethics of it. And,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother rabbit hole to
for
go
sure.
down. But I love AI, and it should stay around.
Fantastic,
Awesome.
fantastic. How can I get back in contact with you, Rogan?
Sure. LaneChangeStrategies.com. As I said, we have leadership briefs. The next one is on the trust collapse on April 23rd. Looking forward to seeing people there.
Fantastic. All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. What a fantastic interview. I appreciate you for coming. And one thing we say is once you come to the show, you're a friend to the show, so you're always welcome to come back.